Well, we've taken a little bit longer than Jesus to resurrect, but people, we have risen 6 days and the Anglo-Italian pod is back. As always, my name is Rory. Welcome to the show, and I'm joined by my very good friend...
Judas Iscariot. I mean, Adam.
How
are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you? You let the mask slip.
Oh, I did, unfortunately, yes. I was just reminiscing just then, as you said, Jesus Christ, about that tweet that the Blackburn Rovers Jesus had scored. And I don't know if you saw the memes, but there was just replicas of Jesus' face on top of a Blackburn Rovers player with his arms out, which was hilarious for that Easter weekend. But yes, it has been a while. I had to remind myself what we do on this podcast again. So I'm definitely not doing any cookery shows or anything like that, Rory. We are here to talk about football again. But yeah, you had an epic break yourself, didn't you, up in the northern mountains of Italy?
Yeah, I feel like I said this exact same thing last year, but guys, you have to go to the Dolomites and Bolzano. It's like my favorite place on earth. We just went walking in the mountains, no technology, no civilization, lots of beer, lots of German food, lots of German, which is good. So it did feel like a proper holiday, even though we've technically not left the country. Yeah, took the dog. It was really nice. I just really like it up there. The weather was terrible, but, you know, big coat and a can-do spirit, and you're fine. You can go anywhere. Exactly. I think the missus didn't quite agree, but we got there in the end. Most of the photos are just clouds. It was a bit mad. Like, we were above the clouds. We were like 1,300 meters up, 1,400 meters up, and it was literally like you were looking down on the rain on the city below and stuff. It was pretty crazy. So, yeah, really, really beautiful. Bolzano, guys, you have to check it out. But... See, Adam, I've forgotten what we're doing. We're not doing a travel pod. We're doing a football pod, so I need to talk about football. Now, there is lots to talk about. Thankfully, the Premier League and Italian football, Coppa Italian, are keeping us busy. In the Premier League, we'll be talking about the race for Europe and the relegation battle, as all of the teams kind of met each other this week. We had a few, of course, Manchester City taking on Aston Villa, Arsenal taking on Liverpool, Spurs taking on West Ham. So we're talking about what that did towards the bottom and top of the table. And in Italy, of course, we'll be talking about Coppa Italia because someone needs to talk about it. It's two-legged semi-finals, guys, but there are slim advantages in both games, and we'll see what this means for the managers and the teams going into the second legs. Exciting stuff, guys. But before we go to the main part of the show, I wanted to talk about not the Coppa Italia, but the Serie C Coppa Italia. Now, Adam, I don't know if you saw this. Do you remember Catania in the Serie A in like mid-2000s, I want to say?
They were a team that was kind of good, weren't they?
They were quite good for a while. Got a very cool badge with an elephant on it. And there's a really good page on Instagram you should follow called Sicilian Football, which cover all the Sicilian teams, and they do a lot of good stuff on Catania, of course. But they recently won the Serie C Coppa Italia. Now, why am I telling you about this? Well, not only was it a two-legged final, because why not? They beat Padova 4-2 in extra time after losing the first 4-1. Some of the goals were absolutely outstanding. A lot of the defending was less outstanding. But the interesting thing here is that winning this final, now as far as I can tell, winning this final qualifies you automatically for the promotion playoffs in Serie C, right? So a place goes to you unless you finish in the relegation zone. And this is the fun bit because Catania are having such a bad season that they could realistically finish 15th and have a chance at getting promoted into Serie B. They are currently 15th, 2 points ahead of Turris in 16th. They've only won one game in 5. They've scored 35 and conceded 34. So not a lot of goals in Catania this season. It's a miracle they scored 4 in one game. Genuinely a miracle. I think the players looked more surprised than the manager. But this does give them a chance at promotion towards the end of the season. It's a bit mad, right? But it'd be nice to see Catania maybe in Serie B.
Maybe they got inspiration from Wigan winning the FA Cup final and went, do you know what? We fancy just mixing it up this year. Why not? So, it's a beautiful story. It'd be nice to see Catania back in the prime kind of leagues, I suppose. It's been a long time, right? So, why not? Why
And I
not?
think like for the Sicilian teams, all the Sicilian teams at the minute are really not doing well, right? There's Palermo kind of pushing for the playoffs in Serie B a little bit. But Messina and Catania, the other two like big boys, really not doing well at the minute. So it'd be nice to see Sicilian football return. But I do feel like if they get promoted at this point, it would be worse than Sheffield United getting promoted to the Premier League in terms of damage that they would sustain. But Serie C Coppa Italia, always worth checking out. Last year it was won by Catanzaro, who are now taking Serie B by storm as well, having an incredibly good season. So yeah, lots of good stuff down in the Italian lower leagues as well. Yes, it was a bit of a quiet break. I had some time on my hands to watch Serie B highlights. But guys, we're going to take a very quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk all things Premier League. And we are back with some midweek Premier League action. And we're going to start in the Etihad, or at the Etihad, in the Etihad, as Manchester City beat Aston Villa 4-1. And there's only one player that everybody's talking about post this game. He's having an incredible season. It's an incredible hat trick. He seems to be hitting new levels, a new role in the team, maybe a slight bit more importance with a lack of De Bruyne around. Phil Foden, what a player. It feels like England haven't really produced a player like him in the past. He seems super technical, super driven. And just this season, I don't know about you, Adam, but it feels like it has really taken a step up, right?
Yeah, certainly. He seems a lot more maybe matured in terms of his approach with the game. And I think there was a lot of kind of commentary about the fact that Foden hasn't been able to kind of rekindle that kind of form when he's playing for England, but that's down to the way Southgate deploys him, I feel. And actually what you saw was a kind of De Bruyne-esque kind of performance against Aston Villa. Like, I think he kind of reflected in the post-match reaction about this game and said how he used to go quite fast with his game. He used to be, quite nimble in his approach, but maybe lacking that kind of take your deep breath when you're making your moves forward and, doing those passes. And I thought that was really mature performance. And you saw the way he kind of took those goals as well. Like, I think he didn't snatch at them necessarily, which he might have done in the past. And yeah, you're starting to think, right, he is the number 10 now. He's less than like a winger. He's an all-rounder in that respect. He can play in multiple positions. And I think Pep loves that. He loves the fact that he has got that ability. And I think I started to see that a little bit more when we saw the City derby a few weeks ago against Man United, where he scored those big goals in those matches as well. But he's just, incredible. I mean, England seem to have this abundance of talent right now, Rory, that it's scary to think that maybe there's just a hard kind of way of trying to fit everyone in at the moment, because someone's going to be disappointed and you have to get the balance of that team right at the moment. But from a Man City perspective, this is really important for their kind of push towards getting that title again, but also with the Champions League, and they're still in the FA Cup, aren't they? So it's insane.
Yeah, I find it quite interesting with Foden because there was a part of me that was like, obviously from an Arsenal perspective, I was like, okay, let's look at the next few years because maybe we don't win the league this year, right? Sacrilege, I know, but maybe we don't win the league this year. But and I was like, okay, well, De Bruyne is getting old, Rodri isn't that young anymore, Walker's getting on. Like, is it City? You're going to get close to a point where there's going to be a transition period, like Arsenal kind of coming into a good groove, whatever. And I was like, De Bruyne is going to be a really difficult player to replace. Now, I'm not saying De Bruyne and Foden are similar players because I think they're not. But I think in a transition period, Foden could potentially perform that role, but with even more goal threat than De Bruyne. I think that we're going to see him become more prominent and more important to this team, I think. And this season is the first step in that. And it's been helped in a way by the fact that De Bruyne has been out injured and he's he's missed a lot of games. The Foden's had to have more responsibility on his shoulders, and it just shows that he's perfectly capable of doing it. He's stepped up, and all three of those goals are completely different goals. They're all like the free kick. Now, obviously, we can talk about Aston Villa's wall. Why you just leave a big old gap there for him to aim at is beyond me, but fine, whatever. The second goal is a really beautiful move, but very nice finish. And then the third goal is just like an absolute thunder bastard, angry fucking finish, like Rooney against Newcastle moaning at the ref and then just bangs it into the net kind of finish.
True.
Right? So I think it just showed like all three. It's just to see that range of goals. I know it's the first free kick or direct free kick he scored in his career, I think, for Man City. So it's like adding another string to the bow. And I just think it's really impressive to see how many strings he has in his bow, I suppose. He just keeps adding to them and just becomes more and more rounded. And I think the conversation now, because I think there's not been any... Like last year, it was so obvious that Haaland was going to win Player of the Year, right? Or Player of the Season because he had 1,000 goals or whatever it was, right?
Sure.
This year, I don't think there's been like one standout player. There's been like a few players that have all impressed to a similar level, right? But I think Foden at the moment is just heading above that, and just keeping his head above everybody else because he's shown not only the amount of goals but important goals. And the amount of assists he's getting as well this season. Like, do you think he's going to be getting his second Player of the Season award? I think he's picked it up before, right? Or did he get Young Player of the Season?
I think he won the Young Players of the season of the award. Yeah, so I think there's a strong possibility. I mean, you think the players that we've had this season, it's going to be tight competition again. But I think on the form that he's displaying right now, Rory, and the season that he's had, I think he's also, to an extent, filling that void that Gundogan kind of exited out of that City squad. So I think this is what Pep was like, loving the fact that he's stepping up in terms of his game. And maybe that's why he's trying to push the likes of Grealish to be more at that level at the moment. And I feel that's a lot of criticism has been aimed at Pep about the fact that he's quite extroverted in terms of his approach, especially with like players. But it's not the first time he's done that. He did that with Haaland, I seem to remember, at the beginning of the season, for example, having a go at him at Burnley match, for example. And, you know, I feel like with Pep, he's just trying to push that extra 1% out of these players and motivate them. So with Phil Foden, absolutely incredible performance. And I struggle to think of many players that could maybe challenge him at this moment in time. So, he definitely deserves to be in with a shout. That's for sure, Rory.
I think it's going to be him. I think the only other contender that, and I know I'm super biased, I would put Declan Rice up there in terms of his level of performance across the season. But I think Phil Foden could be getting that award. To talk about the game a bit more specifically, I suppose, I was a little bit disappointed with Aston Villa, I'll be honest. Now, obviously, they've got a lot of injuries. I think Callum Chambers in midfield didn't really, or that kind of midfield role, that Douglas Luiz kind of role, didn't really work, especially for the fourth goal, which was Foden's hat-trick goal. I feel like he kind of lost the ball in possession. He should have been a bit quicker there. But Villa do this when they concede a lot, right? They do get quite open.
They do, and I think that that goal in particular from Foden for the free kick, you could see Unai Emery visibly annoyed because they go into half time. If they don't concede that, they go into level heads. You know, they're not losing the game at that point, and I think that's a real positive given the injury crisis that it seems like Villa have just accumulated of late. You know, Ollie Watkins obviously out with a hamstring. Matty Cash also picks it up on international duties for Poland. But you know, Emi Martinez, he's a big loss in terms of that kind of presence that he has in goal as well. So I think obviously as much as Robert Olsen wasn't to blame for any of those goals, that was going to be a massive miss. And it does feel like Villa of late have started to wane off of late in terms of their form. I mean, although they've scored a lot more open goals compared to last season, they just last 10 games, for example, if you take away this last game as well, lost 4, 1-4 and 2 draws as well. So it's a bit inconsistent in terms of their kind of play at the moment. And it just feels like the wheels are starting to come off. I mean, how do you feel about Villa at this moment in time?
I think they've been a little bit hot and cold. Like they've been on big winning streaks this season where they went on was it 10-game winning streak or 11-game winning streak, and that mad run at home. But then once that ended, it's just been they've been a little bit more schizophrenic and a little bit more you don't know what's going to happen. And I think kind of with the same thing with Brighton, I suppose, that people have kind of figured them out a little bit more this year. Or like the second half of the season, people have figured them out a little bit more and known how to take them on. Whereas at the beginning of the season, Emery's plan for each team was really, really working, especially at home. So I feel like there's a little bit of that, a little bit of tired legs, a little bit of injuries is making a huge, huge difference. Like Kamara and Luis being missing out of the midfield is absolutely massive.
Sure, yeah.
But I think they will still have enough to get over the line. Look, losing away to Man City isn't going to define your season, right? Nobody expected them to get a win there. Like, I've thought maybe they could have nicked a point, but nobody expected them to get a win there. So I think, look, this result can just be like move on to the next one. But a positive for Villa, I thought, was John Duran. I think every time I've seen him, he's looked very lively, very dangerous, has a great finish in him. I think he's a player that, like, next season we could really see him kick on and become, like, if they do lose Ollie Watkins or even as just a support to Ollie Watkins, like, have you been impressed when you've seen him?
I do like him as a player. I feel like this season he's a bit inconsistent. Maybe that's a bit harsh given what he's had to do this season. He's been a bit part player, hasn't he, to an extent. And, you know, but if you look at his kind of goal return, it's 6 goals in 27 appearances, and a lot of those appearances have been pretty much off the bench as well. So, you know, in the grand scheme of things, especially when you've got an informed player like Ollie Watkins taking a lot of that folds, you know, taking a lot of that pressure potentially off you, because John Duran's been brought on for the last, say, 10, 20 minutes of games just to run down defenders, right? But yeah, I think there's promising signs. There's a good player, and we've got to remember that he came from the US as well, so MLS. So it's always going to take time. But yeah, I've always been kind of interested about this player. He looks like a player that's just going to evolve over time, doesn't he, Rory? Because, you know, that first initial impact when he scored those wonder goals initially when he joined the club. Yeah, there's a lot to be excited about him. So him and also Rodgers, who they brought in from Middlesbrough, I think they're the two to watch out for next season. And I think I'm hoping maybe Unai Emery is given a bit more time and he will mould those players over time. And maybe it will give the opportunity to actually rotate Watkins and let him rest in certain instances, because I think this season has definitely taken its toll on their season. And don't forget, they've done really well in Europe as well. So that's probably an element to consider here.
Well, they're sitting. They've got a tricky tie coming up against Lille, right? That's not a difficult game. Like that's not an easy game. Sorry, Lille are having a relatively decent season in France, I think. So, like, yeah, it's not a tricky tie, and that's not an easy tie at all.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bit of squad management to be had there as well. But we move on, I suppose. Man City get the win. That's all they care about. Foden, incredible. Rodri, of course, scoring. He's having his best goal scoring season ever as well at the moment. Just an unbelievable player. And yeah, 4-1 Manchester City. It means not much changes at the top as Emile Smith-Rowe returns, and the Emirates is delighted. I was so happy to see him start in the game. I really strongly feel we need to find a place and a future for Emile Smith-Rowe. I know he's had injuries. He had that big surgery on his groin, so it means he's missed out most of the season. But every time I see him play, like, there is a place for him. I don't want to sell him, not just because he's an academy product, but he's a player kind of like, he's one of the few players we have that can dribble and can beat a man, like the way, and in quite an Eze style, I want to say. He's quite slow on the ball, but he drops the shoulder, gets the ball past, finds space, and he's getting more and more physical as well. Like, you can see from the first goal, the way he, like, just runs up, shoves the player off the ball, wins the ball back. We don't get that opening goal without that moment from Emile. And I think this is what Arteta has been worried about with him as well, is that, like, okay, off the ball, are you doing enough work? Defensively, are you solid enough? Are you willing to put the hard yards in? And I think this is where Arteta's had the doubts. In a performance like that yesterday, man of the match from Robbie Savage. Thank you, Robbie Savage. I appreciate it.
Very rarely that you'd comment that.
I know, he did something right, because he ruined the rest of the bloody game. But a performance like that really puts him into Arteta's mind of, like, okay, when we have Everton at home or whatever, Villa at home coming up in the season, and a player needs a rest, maybe I can play him ahead of a Havertz. Maybe I can play him ahead of, Jorginho, whatever. And he can do a job. So I think it was really, really important from that point of view. That is the only interesting thing that happened in this match. The rest of the match was pretty terrible, I'll be honest. I think, obviously, Arsenal changed 5 players. It was disjointed. It was slow, but we won. So nobody cares.
Of course, yeah.
So I'm not really going to talk about Arsenal that much. What I wanted to talk about was Luton, because I feel like it's much more interesting what's going on at Luton. That is one of the better footballing performances I've seen from a team, especially in the second half. I feel like, especially when Tahith Chong came on, who I was really impressed with. He completely changed the game when he came on. Some of the moves that Luton were putting together, some of the passing moves and everything, it was just really beautiful to watch. They had us on the ropes a little bit. We had to bring on Declan Rice to solidify it and be like, okay, guys, please, no silly mistakes.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't help but feel like Luton are just going to go down and it'll be forgotten how good they were because they cannot get a result.
Yeah, and I think when I was making notes about Luton, it's mainly because I feel like they're missing Elijah Adebayor, who obviously has been injured. He is not expected to be back until May, so that's a kind of whimper for them at the moment because they could really do with that presence up top. I think he was the catalyst for a lot of their victories that they got in between January and December. And him being missing out this squad really just puts a lot more kind of stress on the other players like Ross Barkley to kind of perform and do his magic, which I think, you can only do that for so much. He's going to be a marks man now pretty much because everyone knows about his ability and they don't neglect the fact that Ross Barkley's a bad player. And I think that Luton Town have done really well to get to this point where they're still within a fighting shot. I think everyone kind of had them as a favourite to go down. So the fact that they've kind of changed our perception through the hard work and what, Rob Edwards has done in terms of instilling that confidence in that squad is amazing. What I've noticed though here is whilst they have this kind of perception of playing attractive football, it doesn't seem to be getting them a lot of results. For example, Rory, they're not the highest in terms of shots per game, for example. So they on average get for 3.6 per game, which makes them 17th in the table against other teams at the moment. So this is the thing that kind of lets them down. And also accuracy of passing in a game, like you alluded that they put a lot of pressure, but actually they're ranked 19th in the league for accuracy of passing. So actually it's one of those that they seem to counter a lot, don't they, in terms of their style of football. Maybe we didn't see that so much yesterday. And it was interesting, obviously, Fred Onyedinma, who was bought in off an on loan spell with Rotherham United, was only given a registered shirt last week. So it was his first Premier League appearance for the club. And I did see his performance and it did look like it was Bambi on ice because he was just adapting to having to track back. You saw how many times Rob Edwards was trying to get all of the team to come back and get behind the ball. So I feel like this is going to be the interesting part is do they kind of park that philosophy and just look at getting results no matter how they achieve it now, or do they stick with their philosophy, which I suspect they will stick to their philosophy, which is I think maybe their downfall, but like I alluded to, I think they are just missing that presence up top with Elijah Adebayor, who he's been a pinnacle for their season so far.
Yeah, well, they had zero threat from set pieces last night when, in terms of when we played at Kenilworth Road, they scored from 2 set pieces, right? I feel like Carlton Morris is someone who just works the hard yards, but again, zero presence up front, really. And again, much like the Villa, much like Villa going away to City, Luton season isn't going to be defined by losing to Arsenal away, right? But it just... now it's 10 games or 13 games without a win for Luton. I think it's 10 games without a win for Luton now. And they're getting a few draws, but not many. And it just feels like every week we've said, oh, I know they're a good side, Luton. They're a good side. They're a good side. Yeah. Well, they're just not. That won't get you very far. And I feel like I feel really bad for them because they had some really nice moments last night. There's some decent players in that team. It's just not quite clicking. And I think defensively, they're giving up so many shots. When you look at their games, lost 4-3 to us. They've conceded 3s and 4s quite often. And it, again, almost like we were talking about Aston Villa, when they concede 1, they tend to concede a lot. So I think it was good from them last night that they only conceded 2 to Arsenal without sounding too cocky. Because I feel like when the second one went in, I thought, okay, we've just put 6 past Sheffield United or 5 past Palace, whatever. This could turn into a cricket score. But they defended well enough, and as much as Arsenal weren't inspiring in the second half, like they defended well enough to keep us in it. I just think they're just missing that one thing. But if we look at the relegation battle, do you think they can keep their heads out of it? They've been helped by Everton and Forest and all the points deductions. Like, if they're ever going to do it, this is the season to do it, right?
Well, this is the thing. I was kind of alluding to it. I was going to allude to it, should I say, was that the fact that I think a few weeks ago we wouldn't have seen Burnley creep up on us as much as they have. Now they're 3 points off Luton right now, as it currently stands, and they're starting to pick up these results, which is madness when you consider that a few weeks ago, I swear they were only on 14 points, and it didn't look like they were going to get any more than that. So it does feel at the moment that Luton, they haven't got the most favourable of runs as well, if I remember rightly. They've still got to play Man City away, haven't they? And they've still got Everton as well as Brentford to play, although both of those games are at home. So you kind of maybe say that gives them a bit of hope because they can do something at Kenilworth Road. But, I just think they got to get somewhere with their formula of the style of play. They need to be more clinical. They need to be more defensively astute at the back as well, because like you alluded to, there's a lot of late goals that they're conceding, and I think that's ultimately brought them back down in terms of that positioning, because they could be a lot higher. I think a few weeks ago everyone was purring about them and saying this is a team that could stand up. I just think I'm looking at these fixtures. It's not easy run, because they've got Bournemouth next, then they've got Man City, as I alluded to, away, Brentford at home, away to Wolves, at home to Everton, away to West Ham, and then last day of the season at home to Fulham. Maybe
it's those home games.
Blessing. Yeah.
It's those home games. I think it's interesting that you said about clinical, because I was looking at their goals and XG. They're exactly on. They're performing their goals and XG. It's 1.38 XG, 1.38 goals scored, right? So they are very clinical when they get there. It's the chance creation. Like you said, they're averaging 3 shots a game, right? Which is the 19th in the league, I think you said, right? It's just about creating any opportunities. Because again, last night, in the second half especially, they had a lot of possession and movement in our half, but it was all just around the box. It was all very well contained by Arsenal, but none of it was penetrative. So I feel like just that chance creations where they really fall apart. So they need that, as good a season as Ross Barkley is having. He can't do it all on his own, because everyone knows, okay, we'll just mark him, and then they've got zero creativity in the team, right? So I think it's just having a little bit more creativity. But we've been fairly on the record about we hope Luton stay up, and I think there is enough quality there. I really like Rob Edwards as well. He just seems like such a good lad. So I really hope it goes well. But we're going to leave Arsenal Luton there, and we're going to move on to... we're going to talk about, let's go to East London, and let's talk about Tottenham 1, West Ham 1. Zuma puts West Ham back in the race as he backs the ball into the net to make it 1-1. Bloody hell, Tottenham just can't. I thought it was a really, really messy performance from Tottenham.
Yeah, it was pretty much chaotic Spurs, wasn't it? It wasn't like a really assured performance from them to an extent. They did look like they kind of controlled it in the first half. But, ultimately, I felt like West Ham were full value for getting the draw as well, because actually they had the moments. Even Mikel Antonio, with the almost last kick of the game, has a chance to make it 2-1, which I'm sure a lot of West Ham fans, including Tom, are kicking themselves right now. But yeah, it was a strange game as well, because I was watching it and it wasn't the most entertaining game at the same point. Although it was end to end, it didn't have the same kind of quality that is normally associated with these games. Because I've seen them before, and West Ham, when they've been dominating the play, they've really made it look like Tottenham were ordinary. In this game, it was slightly different. I think there was a few off performances from Spurs as well. I can't really put my finger on it, but there's a number of performances that I'm still like a bit unsure of. The likes of Kulusevski of late hasn't been his usual self. For example, Son has gone off the radar a bit, and that's not because he's not trying. It's just whatever he's trying to do isn't pulling off. So it feels like, there's elements of their play, and these kind of results really is hampering their kind of push into Europe or into those spots at the moment. Because they're almost letting Man United with a hook line and saying, here you go, take our place if you want to, right? So yeah, it's a really strange season, but they still face some big teams still in their kind of fixture pile-up, because they've still got to play yourselves, they've still got to play Liverpool away, and they've still got City as well, haven't they, at home, which is to be rearranged. So yeah, they could have a massive say in terms of the season, in terms of how it ends as well. So but yeah, West Ham full value for their draw. If anything, maybe slightly disappointed they didn't take all three.
Yeah, I think with West Ham, it's mad because they started so badly, and when Spurs did get the goal, I was like, oh, okay, this could actually be a bit of a messy night. A nice little finish from Brennan Johnson, like a really nice run into the box. I feel like there's he's very good at like ghosting in at the back post and just timing his run very well. I think that was a very nice goal. But I thought, okay, this could get messy for West Ham. But then against Spurs, they just managed to like grit in and be like, no, we're not losing to this lot, right? And I feel like they did really, really improve. The players that kind of impressed me the most, I can't just keep talking about Paquetá, but Paquetá was incredible. But a player that Tom actually pointed out to me, and he was saying he might be West Ham's best player of the season. I hadn't really thought about it until I started watching him a bit closer. Is Emerson at left back? I thought he's been absolutely fantastic. I thought this was another really good performance. I felt like not only in his threat running forward, but defensively, his timing in the tackle. I feel like he's been like a real leader at the back, and it's not a player that I really would have expected it from. And I've only watched him since Tom kind of said it to me. I was like, okay, I'm going to keep an eye on his performances and see what I think. And I thought this was another performance where I thought he just did really well. He just looks like his experience, his pace. I thought he just played really well. And I think it was a really standout performance from him. Paquetá was fantastic. Kudus, I find very, very frustrating at times. And I'm sure West Ham fans would have found him frustrating as well. I've not seen a player in a very long time who's better at progressing the ball, right? He gets the ball, he runs, he beats a man, he beats a man, he beats a man. He beats a man, he loses the ball, he gives it away. And you just wish that he'd pass it a little bit quicker sometimes. So he had some amazing moments in this game.
Yeah.
But then it's like, there was one where he ran around three players, then kind of went back on himself. And I was like, just pass it. Pass it. Like, just give it up. So like a really exciting player again, but just maybe that moment missing. But I thought West Ham were very, very good. Spurs defensively, I feel like their defense really needs to be sorted out. I thought that the performance between Van de Ven and Romero together, it was a very ill-disciplined performance from centre-backs. Now, Romero gets booked for a stupid tackle, and Van de Ven I think he got booked for a stupid tackle as well, or was it kicking the ball away?
Well, it was basically, he kind of fell on the sidelines, and instead of like picking himself up to go, he kind of tapped the ball away, basically. So that was a bookable offence, essentially.
A stupid thing to do. Just a stupid thing to do. And you could feel like, as the pressure in the stadium was building because the atmosphere was awake or whatever, both centre-backs were like, and you could see the frustration there. And I feel like defensively, they were just a bit all over the place. We can talk again about how West Ham have very little attacking threat, right? Antonio should score, right? That 1-to-1. I know he was flagged offside for one, and it was like, okay, finish. And he just makes it so predictable, like telegraphs the finish. A great save from Vicario, right? Gets down quickly. It probably wouldn't have counted anyway, but the point remains. And you just think Antonio should be finishing that chance. The goal at the chance at the very end of the game, again, you're like, he's a really good out ball. He's really good at taking the pressure off the team, but he's just not got that finish. And I feel like West Ham, their hunt for a decent striker continues, because the second they have a decent striker, that is a proper team, I think, because they put Spurs to the sword if they have. I like Antonio, but he just can't finish. That was a terrible performance. But In terms of the race for Europe, the Spurs have left the door open for United, as you said. Do you think they're getting very inconsistent towards the end of the season, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%. I can't really put my finger on it in terms of why they're not grinding out the results, but it seems to be individual areas, doesn't it, at the moment in time? I also feel like the form of Pedro Porro for the second half of this season has dropped off like a cliff. Obviously, there's been a lot of reliance on those wing backs to create a lot of opportunities. Madison's been quite poor since he's come back from injury as well. So I think a lot of that kind of creativity and, I suppose a lot of reliance on him to do a lot more on the ball has been lacking. So maybe they need to reshuffle it. Maybe, Postecoglou has to have a rethink in terms of how he approaches the next few games, because I think there's a few players that probably should be benched. It'll be interesting to get Ben's take on it, but certainly from my point of view, there's a number of players at the moment just making the whole kind of performance go let down in that respect. And I feel like it's just not as fluid as it was at the beginning of the season. They seem to be a lot more on fire, didn't they, at the beginning of the season? And at the moment, they're relying on the likes of Vicario to save them for the games at the moment. So, yeah, not great.
Oh, well. But we're going to move on and leave that one there. With West Ham, it kind of keeps them in the hunt for Europe, doesn't it? The Conference League again next year, probably. If they can get a decent end to season, again, just need a decent striker. We're going to leave West Ham and Spurs there. Elsewhere in the Premier League, very quickly, let's go through the results. And it started with Newcastle 1, Everton 1. How Everton got a point in this game is completely beyond me. I do not know how that happened. Paul Dummett happened, right? That was Paul Dummett happened.
That's what he did, yeah.
And Everton got a point.
Stupid. Yeah.
Ridiculous. Sometimes you do worry about what goes through people's heads. And I was like, because I turned it on, or I kind of was paying attention as the result came through, or as the VAR was being checked, and I was like, "Oh, let's see." Oh yeah, no, you don't need to. Why are you even going to VAR? There's a frigging penalty. But yeah, Everton will be thankful. A big point for them. Isak in incredible form, scored in 5 games in a row at St James's Park now. Lovely for when Arsenal come in and buy him. Elsewhere, Nottingham Forest, Fulham away.
Massive.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Fulham away compared to Fulham at home. It's like, the meme of that like cute dog and then the dog that's super muscly. It's like Fulham at home and Fulham away. But we have to give some credit to Morgan Gibbs-White with an incredible performance and a goal. How surprised were you by this result from Forest? Absolutely massive.
Surprised by the result in the respect of I didn't expect them to win this game. I thought it'd be probably close, maybe a draw, and on the balance of it, maybe Fulham could have got a result out of it. They could have got a draw. And I still, maybe this is the glimmer of light for Luton and the likes below as well, that actually Nottingham Forest can still be dragged into this. I don't think this was the best performance, to be brutally honest. Although they won on the night, they're terrible. I feel they're reverting to Nuno Espirito Santo style of football at the moment. And it doesn't... I don't know whether you saw or caught those comments midweek about he's instilled confidence into the squad. I don't think confidence was the issue under Steve Cooper. It was actually maybe they weren't grinding out enough results. And I don't think they've ground out magnificently better results. They've been unlucky, and I think they've had a few decisions go the other way, for example, where VAR should have probably been in their favour. But yeah, I mean, just looking at the stats generally, average possessions 40% per game. They're rated 18th in the league, for example. Shots per game is only slightly higher than Luton, at 4 per game. It's just these little elements that I just don't feel like they've actually pushed on since he's come to the job. And I think that's probably the helping side. The negative, I suppose, to everyone else around him is the form of Chris Woods. That guy, I mean, he's turning into prime Ronaldo at the moment. Just everything he touches goes.
He's third in the league in terms of goals per minute, I think.
Yeah, it's insane.
He's like second or third. It is incredible. How he's just come on and kept scoring goals. But you have to say, a 3-0 up at halftime in the Premier League is a very, very good performance.
Yes.
Of course. What you want to say? The fact that, of course, that Marco Silva made 3 substitutions after half an hour, none of them injury based. I think it's the first time it's ever happened in the Premier League.
He did state he would have taken more off as well if he could. So that shows you how bad Fulham were.
He was like so angry. He wasn't even angry. It's like when your mum's like, you know, I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. He was just so disappointed in what the hell happened. Incredible. Burnley drew with 1-1 with Wolves in that kind of uptick of form that Burnley are currently going through. At the moment, the big thing is they've dropped James Trafford and gone for the goalkeeper that got them promoted. And it seems to have led to an improvement. I don't know how it's taken him 6 months to figure this one out, but I suppose better late than never, right?
I think there's probably a trust piece, wasn't there? He tried to instill that confidence into Trafford, who he bought in for big money, it has to be reminded. Given that his kind of footballing background was a loan spell at Bolton Wanderers last season as well. So League One football, then being pushed into Premier League. I think that was a huge mistake on Kompany's part. He should have stuck with the keeper that did so well for him in the Championship. And you'd like to think that maybe he's done something that might push them on this season now for the rest of the season anyway. Burnley's just a bit of a strange position, aren't they? I think they're just conceding a lot of goals in the last 10 to 5 minutes of games at the moment. They still have to play a number of big sides, Man United away, Spurs away, for example, and they've still got Everton away, Sheffield United away, and Forest last day of the season at home. So it could be tight. They could run it to the last day of the season. I'm thinking based on the fact that they're 3 points off Luton. So, and they're the best in terms of average possession stats versus those around them in that kind of relegation battle. So that's something to be positive about with Burnley. But it may be the reluctance and naivety of companies played a part in their season.
Well, he may have the last laugh yet, because we were all laughing at him with his crap t-shirt and suit jacket, but maybe he's gonna have the last laugh.
That baseball cap has to come off.
And the baseball cap, looking like a tech bro. And elsewhere, Bournemouth beat Crystal Palace 1-0. I think even Bournemouth and Crystal Palace fans don't remember that game. And Brentford and Brighton drew 0-0. And I think Brentford and Brighton fans do not even remember that game. Elsewhere this evening, because we're recording, oh my God, absolute scenes. Liverpool beat Sheffield United 3-1. I'm not talking about that. Chelsea were 2-0 up. United were 3-2 up. And now it's 3-3. Cole Palmer's got a penalty in the 100th minute to equalise it. The two bin fires are currently joining for the world's biggest bin fire. Usually this game is like 0-0 and terrible. So 3-3 is pretty impressive. I can't wait to see the highlights. Yeah, fair play. Cole Palmer, what a season he is having. Just imagine Chelsea without him. Without him, they'd be in the relegation zone, right?
Yes, pretty much without his influence. I mean, it's not just the goals he scores, it's also the setups he does, the creativity. It's just general the spark of the player. So they've got a hell of a bargain. I think people talk about signings of the season. I think there's probably an argument to say Cole Palmer is one of them.
Like, he should be on the player of the season list. The only thing is you can't give it to a team that are in 12th. Like, you can't say you've been the player of the season in a team that's finished 12th. I just don't think
there's an argument to say he
should be in the conversation. Right? Yeah, that's exactly. His 13th goal, and he's got 8, maybe 14th goal and 8 assists now. I think I'm kind of doing the maths live.
It's insane, isn't it?
Incredible season from him. And so as it stands, that's 3-3. 4-3 Chelsea. Oh my God. It's just a second. He scored again. Hat-trick. 101st minute, Cole Palmer. That is, guys, I feel like Jeff Stelling.
I'll be Chris Kamara. Did they just score?
When? I missed that. Yeah, incredible. Oh my God. Who to laugh at more? I love this. 4-3 Chelsea. United fans are going to be gutted. They're into the 14th minute of added time. That VAR must have been an absolute mess. Anyway, we're going to stop reacting to this. As it is, it's 4-3. I'm sure it'll finish 7-8 somehow, but you will know by when you're listening to this podcast. We're going to take a very, very quick break, and we're going to come back with Coppa Italia. Ciao, come stai? Benvenuti. Welcome to the Italian part of the show. And we're going to be talking about the Coppa Italia. I ran out of steam a little bit with the intro there. Don't know if I think I hit it well. Don't worry. I don't think anybody noticed. And we're going to be talking about Coppa Italia. Not much action going on this week in Italy, but our favorite competition's back. It's the two-legged semi-finals. It's the first leg. And the next ones are about 20 days away because it makes sense. And we're going to start with Fiorentina 1, Atalanta 0. Two teams that have really struggled for any level of consistency this season. Two teams also massively battling it out for Europe. So a little bit like, it felt like there was a little bit, personal, a little bit more riding on this game, right? Fiorentina desperately trying to keep themselves scrapping in 10th place on 43 points, below Torino. God damn, I've not looked at the table in a while. And Atalanta all the way up in 6th on 50. Now, this felt like, obviously, it's the cup, but it felt like two teams who were kind of battling throughout the season, but not much in it, apart from an incredible goal from Mandragora. Picks up in midfield, strolls through, and just pings it into the top corner. Hell of a hit. A player that when he moved from Udinese, we said we were quite excited about him. He's had a relatively quiet season. Now, he's not a goal-scoring midfielder, right? That's not what he really did. But it's good to see him get in the headlines, right? He's a player that we really liked at Udinese.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I would say that actually this season he has had an impact in terms of he's picked up a few important goals for Fiorentina in general scheme of it. I think for the Fiorentina fans base, they are still frustrated at the inconsistency of this squad, for example, because they can have a performance like this against Atalanta and on the weekend they'll just screw it up against a team they're expected to win. But that was really an assured performance from Fiorentina. Look, Perez has been missing of late. No one knows what the hell happened to him. People assuming that he was in Vincenzo Italiano's basement, for all we know, because he had this kind of reluctance to play him and wanted Biraghi. But, there was some really good performances on that pitch, from Fiorentina. The likes of Nicky Gonzalez, who I absolutely adore that player. I think I cannot wait to see him at a bigger stage, potentially. Sorry, Fiorentina fans, but I just genuinely think he deserves a move elsewhere. But yeah, maybe Fiorentina fans will get their wish because there's been a lot of rumours about Italiano's future and potentially that Napoli are already lining him up as a replacement down there. I don't know if that will actually happen because that rumour's been kind of there since the beginning of last season when Spalletti left, to be fair. So we'll wait and see on that one.
Feels like a weird time to go.
He's bold. He looks like Spalletti if you just kind of blur your eyes, right? That's what it is.
Is that Luciano? Yeah, okay. I think it's a weird time to try and go for Italiano. Like, I think most Fiorentina fans would be like, time to move on, right?
That's kind of basically.
Yeah. Like, no, don't worry about compensation. It's fine. You can just take it. Like, so it feels like a weird time for Napoli to be trying to approach him. But hey, look, he still did very good work before he got to Fiorentina. He got them to a European final. We've talked about this before, but like, yeah, it's it's a big win. But I do feel like going into a second leg in Bergamo, you probably needed more than one goal, right?
Yeah.
I think they probably needed more than one goal. Atalanta, again, like lacking a bit of cutting edge up front. They just can't really get that consistency from any of their strikers. Like Lookman's been in and out of the team, not really. We know he's a streaky player, but he's not on a run at the moment. Scamacca, like their highest scorer, I'm pretty sure is Coop Miners. Like they're not, they can't. They can't get the consistency from that front line, but I still think heading into a second leg in Bergamo, Fiorentina probably needed more than one goal. But yeah, not a lot to really talk about in this match beyond an incredible goal by Mandragora, to be honest. So yeah, beautiful. Do seek that out on Twitter. Fiorentina fans, we're not trying to like rain on your parade. We apologize. But we are going to move on to the second leg, the second tie. And Allegri has got a new plan. Adam, enlighten us. What is Allegri's new tactical vision?
Well, I'm going to spellbound your whole ears when you hear this. It is Allegri saying, I told the guys, let's run towards the opponent's goal and we'll find a goal or some solutions, should we say. So Allegri's kind of thought or tactic there is just get the ball forward, see what you can do, basically. Typical
You
Allegri
figure it out.
fashion. There's been, yeah, basically. I'm sick and tired of giving you guys an idea of how to play it right. But yeah, there's been a lot of rumours about Allegri's future this week. Even before this game took off, there was already talks about, and this was a true fact, that a lot of the players didn't kind of commute together to the hotel that they were supposed to spend the night together. I mean, come on, who wants to spend a night with Allegri? Let's be honest. But generally, that was the whole team aspect. There's a split kind of in the team at the moment that is evident by the performances. Yeah. I mean, look, in that kind of 9 games that they've gone with just 1 win in that space of time, you know, Bologna have got together 17 points versus Juventus, who have only got 9 points in that period, a lot of them being draws. You know, when we think about that run as well, this was just prior to the Inter match as well. And now just they look like every week, Rory, that they're going to lose that 4th place at the moment as it currently stands. I think
they're turned into Udinese. Not only do they share the same colours, they're drawing every week. They're in relegation form. They're in relegation form. Like, they are literally in the form of a team that might get relegated. Like, I think it's incredible the drop off that's happened there. Like, look, and this performance, like, Juve ultimately have enough quality in the squad that they will get the odd win, right? And like, you're up against like a team that, you know, Juve probably should be beating, if you know what I mean. Like, they were the heavy favourites, but I think it's still just not quite enough, right? It's still just not quite, like, you know that it's not going to last very long. You know it's not really going to be like, there's not the foundations there, and I think it's like the 2 great goals. The finish from Chiesa was really nice to see. It was a kind of classic Chiesa goal. And Vlahovic with a tidy finish. But I think, yeah, their form elsewhere has been absolutely horrific. And I think Allegri, it comes back to the age-old issue of, can Juve afford to sack him, ultimately? Like, they're already asking him, like, if he's going to renew, can you renew on lower wages? Are you, like... So that they're making it pretty clear that they don't think he's worth the money they're paying him. But can they get him with someone else? Now, I was listening to a podcast this week, and they were talking about how they've made it very clear who their choice is for next year, right? Their choice for next year, no surprises, Thiago Motta, right? That is who they want, right? But the fact that the whole of Italian football knows that that's who they want and they have no plan B is not really working in their favour. I imagine Thiago Motta, if he is that way inclined, will just add an extra 0 onto whatever wage he's going to demand. Like, what do you think the odds are that Thiago Motta goes to Juve in the summer? Or what do you think the odds are that Juve move on from Allegri?
I think there's a 0 chance, personally. I just think Allegri being on the wages that he's on, they can't afford to just simply pay him off. They're going to have to put him on some sort of gardening severance payments, right? And that's just going to accumulate higher wages anyway. So they're going to have to balance this. And this is going to be an interesting summer in the grand scheme of things, because obviously there's a lot of players that are out of contract as well at the same time. Players that potentially, I would say, you should just ship off rather than trying to maybe speculate to keep them on, because the likes of Rabiot, for example, is a player that's notoriously is on a higher wage, for example, down there. Wojciech Szczesny enters his last 12 months, as I believe it's as well. You know, there's a lot of weird things going on at Juventus right now, because it's the hierarchy at the minute, ultimately, that is pulling all the strings, but they just don't seem to have a cohesive kind of thought process around how they're going to do it. Look, they brought in that director from Napoli, and he's obviously going to be there to kind of attract the talents. And, you know, there's rumors that they've already made moves for the likes of Felipe Anderson on a free transfer, which might fit that philosophy. But I don't know if that's necessarily a upgrade on what they already have. You know, if you look at the talents that they've got, like Matteo Sule, for example, what a fantastic season he's had. But there's rumors are that they're going to probably use him as collateral to get more cash funds into the club, because they kind of speculate that he'll be maybe sold off this summer for 40 million, right? And that's whether there'll be clubs willing to pay that kind of sum for someone that, yes, he has got his caps for Argentina now, so that probably makes him a bit more attractive. He's having a fantastic season at Frosinone, but he's been a bit quiet of late.
Yeah,
So
I was going to say not for a while though. Not for a while.
Exactly. And then other players have still got to come back into the fold, like Fagioli, for example. What is he going to be like? Miretti hasn't played very well since he's been in the fold. It does think like it needs a rebuild again. And yes, the problem is you've got Allegri there, but you might as well just let him see out the last 12 months. And I personally, if I'm Motta personally, why would I want to go there whilst you're having to rebuild the whole club when you could be doing something revolutionary with Bologna? See it for another 12 months, because they're going to be most likely in the Champions League spots by the end of the season, or if not in Europe. That's still an amazing achievement for Bologna, regardless. But I suppose where he might be looking at is, will his team still be there at the end of the season? And that's down to the Bologna board to kind of give those reassurances, right?
This is exactly it. And I think, but it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, I think the team stays together more if Motta stays, and Motta stays if the team stays together more, right? I feel like, because it only takes that one piece to be removed, and then all the vultures fly in and they take your best players and it's all gone, right? So I think, for Motta, it's an interesting one, because I feel like when I've talked to my Italian friends here who follow football, and I'm like, well, he's an Inter kind of legend, Inter icon, and he's, would he go to Juve? And they were like, we get the impression that he doesn't, he just wants his own career. He would happily join Milan. He would happily join, he just wants to forge on with his career however he does it. So I don't really hold my breath that much for him staying at Bologna, unfortunately. But I think you do make a good point in terms of, is this a good time to take over at Juve? What I think there is there is the club are trying to take, and it looked like, although it now looks like they're trying to sell Sule, it looked like they were trying to take a lean towards the youth team, right? They've brought in this Juve Next Gen. They've promoted players like Yildiz from that team.
Yeah, exactly.
Quite a few players for the first or second season that team's been in existence, maybe third. Now I think about it, there's been a few players come through where you're like, okay, they had this experience here, and it looked like they were taking that lean. So if I'm a manager, maybe you're going, okay, I know what the system's going to be. There are players like Fagioli, Miretti, who are exciting young players, can be Cambiasso, right? There's a few, it's going to be a transition period as you get a new goalkeeper, like you said, or you get a new centre-back, whatever. But there's a bit there where you can be like, okay, I can be the guy who guides this club through this transition. It will take patience, but I know that there's enough quality there that we can build something. So I think there is there's an interesting project there. I just think, with that squad, they just need a new man in charge. As you said, they're getting separate buses to games or whatever. They're driving their own cars to games. I think for the club, it is crucial that they get rid of Allegri, because you can't sack a team. You can't you can't just sell. And now Chiesa, I saw the thing today that Orsolini's had a better goal scoring season than Chiesa has ever had this season, right? Chiesa, as good a player as he is on his day, there's a little bit of overhype with him, and I think I'm guilty of it at times as well. When you look at his figures, you're like, okay, they're not great. Sure, but you can't just throw away one of your marquee players for a manager who you know that you're only going to have for one more year. You know what I mean? Exactly. It feels like, I think at this point, Juve have to, if they can anyway, just bite the bullet and say, look, thank you, Massimiliano. It's been a pleasure, kind of. Don't let the door hit you on the way out, but we have to get this manager while no one else is getting him. Because if Juve don't get him, Milan get him. I think they're not the only one in that queue, right? Milan, we know are going to have a big summer this summer. Pioli isn't going to be there next year. It's almost confirmed at this point. They're looking for someone new. Their eyes are firmly focused on him. So I think for Juve, for the next couple of years, it's kind of crucial that they jump at this opportunity and be like, we just have to bite the bullet. If it means that they explain to Motta and say, look, there's going to be less transfer kitty because we had to bring you in, but, they have to figure it out, because I think just wasting another year with Allegri where it's just, okay, hopefully we finish top four because we just happen to have enough quality, but no one's enjoying it. It's just a complete waste. And if they finish in Champions, well, they should be in the Champions League next year, unless they really fuck it up. They should be in the Champions League next year. So then this is meant to be, we've said it before, this was meant to be their easy season. This was meant to be them, taking a break. And so it's not going to get any easier. So I think, it's a tricky time for Juve, but a big win, right? 2-0 against Lazio isn't bad. I think I was a bit dismissive with my comments before. It's not a team they're heavy favourites, but I think Juve at home are always favourites, right? But a good 2-0 win. Obviously, Lazio getting used to their new manager, a new system, three at the back, Igor Tudor. A lot more. I noticed a lot more crosses into the box, a lot more direct, a lot more, a bit quicker. I think like the change in style has been quite drastic and quite like impressive how quickly they've changed it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that Igor Tudor has implemented this style of football. It reminds me of that time he had with Hellas Verona. That was very quick, expansive style of football, and they did it with 1 or 2 touch kind of transitions where it was kind of from a defensive move, how do you transition quickly to attacking move? And that's what you're starting to see. Obviously, I think he's still playing with the players at the moment, you know, Zaccagni being more on that kind of left wing position and almost playing like a wing back to an extent. I think obviously he didn't have his great game here against Juventus, but also, you know, question marks about Ciro as well. Ciro not having the best of his games here. In the previous game, obviously, they did play Juventus in Rome, and that's where they got that 1-0 win courtesy of Adam Marusic in the league. They seem to be a lot better at home. They seem to be more, you know, they had plenty of opportunities. Titi Casanos should have scored more in that particular match. So it's interesting that he rotated the squad. He's obviously playing around with it, tinkering it, and finding out his best 11 at this moment in time. And I think, obviously, when Provedel comes into it as well, that will shore up that defensive element as well. But yeah, lots to kind of take out of this result for Igor Tudor. Nothing to be worried about, I would say. Look, you expected, like you said, Rory, probably not to get too much out of this particular game. But on a return leg, I can see this still being something that they can peg themselves back into the match. And potentially, who knows, maybe they actually go on to win it. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting game, that return leg, that's for sure, Rory.
I think it's all definitely to play for. As we've seen with like a lot of managers, give them a bit more time and they'll figure it out, and there'll be a complete like 20 days between those ties is a lot of time for the team to learn the new system. So it'll be interesting to see. But big win for Juve, keeps smiles on the faces a little bit. Elsewhere in Serie A, I wanted to. Well, we've talked about Juve. We've not talked about the big story of the day, Adam. We've not talked about the big story of the day. There is hope for Juve fans.
That's the plan B, right? That's the plan B.
This is plan B. This is the second part, phase 2 of run at the goal.
Well, if Thiago Motta doesn't come, this is what's going to happen.
Who's going to run at the goal? Well, it's going to be Italy's favourite couple. Wanda was spotted on Instagram. Yes, I do follow her on Instagram. You have to for the drama. Spotted on Instagram taking a very fetching selfie in a Juventus hoodie. And all of a sudden, of course, it means Mauro. She's decided that now Mauro is moving to Juventus. I have to see this move. Not only because of the, you know, he was an icon at Inter for a very long time, and then it all fell apart. He fell out with the Curva. They already weren't particularly happy about him when he was scoring for the club. His career has gone a bit mad, killing it in Galatasaray. Make the hero/villain's return to Turin and be like Agent Mauro as he tears the club apart from the inside to become a real Inter hero, right? I would love. We have to see Allegri trying to manage Wanda, right? The scenes are going to be incredible.
That would be. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that one. It's just the meetings could be historic, right, in this respect. But yeah, I mean, you just want it because of the drama. I can't see this happening personally. I just think she's just happened to pick up a hoodie that tended to have the Juventus badge, and that's about it. So, but you know, I'm here for it. I'd love to see it happen in that respect, and just to see the levels of abuse Icardi gets. It's going to be brutal. In terms of his form, yes, he's been all right for Galatasaray. He's not been magnificent, but he's got himself back into shape, which was better than what he was in a state when they first got him from PSG. So yeah, says a lot. But yeah, I think this is unlikely to happen. He's probably not his kind of style. I could be mistaken. I could be mistaken, but maybe this is the cheap option, right? This could be the cheaper option of what's available.
I think he's got Juve written all over it, honestly. I think it's like a striker who knows the league. He's a pretty consistent bags man. He'll score fairly regularly for you. Like, his wages won't be massive because he's taken that hit of going to Turkey.
True.
He knows that he's lowered a bit. I think he's got Juve written all over it. And I think you're vastly underestimating how much Wanda considers everything about her image and what she puts on Instagram. I think it's all like incredibly well thought out, but we'll see. Maybe I'm accrediting her too much credit. But yeah, we can hope that happens. Elsewhere, in more kind of sensible and exciting striker moves in Milan, possibly, we have the story that it's starting, guys. It's starting. We've talked about Bologna a little bit, but the vultures are circling. Milan, it looks like they are ready to offer 50 million for Joshua Zirkzee for him to be the replacement for Olivier Giroud. There's a big part of me that really likes a Leao, Zirkzee, Chukwueze on form, kind of front three. Yeah, just that's a lot of excitement, right? If Milan could get that deal over the line, that would be huge, eh?
Massive kind of gamble, should we say, in some respects, because I mean, to spend that kind of money on a player like him, it'd be fascinating to see what Bayern Munich kind of decide to do with this one, because they obviously have this 50% share that they could decide to either opt to take that or bring him back to the club. So that'll be interesting to see whether they decide to pursue that. But yeah, massive potential for Milan in that respect. I think obviously it seems like Olivier Giroud has agreed a pre-agreement with LAFC, led to believe. So it'd be fascinating to see if that happens, because I don't begrudge Olivier Giroud a one last payday check, especially what he's delivered for Milan as well. He's been so relied upon. He will be a massive miss, but Zirkzee will help evolve that team. I suppose my question marks still remain in terms of Pioli and his game management sometimes, and I think there's other areas of the pitch that they really need to look at and maybe reinforce. But look, if this is a like for like, because we're assuming that Olivier Giroud is going, then what a hell of a signing this could be.
Yeah, I think it's just really, really good future planning, right? Like, obviously, you can say Zirkzee's only, this has been his first standout season, but it's also been the first season where he's been the main striker starting every game. Yeah. Like we talked about at the beginning of the season, right? Like Arnautovic was the main guy last year. He's come in, he's stepped up. His profile of player, I think, like Milan, for all the we give Pioli a lot of shit for not really having a plan, their football is very fun. They do play a lot of fun football at the moment. And I think having him as like a dribbly boy, kind of dropping deep, having that bringing people into play, he could really link up with Leao incredibly well. Now, I know that there's stories about Leao leaving as well, right? It looks like he might be gone. But if you could hold on to him for 1 year and be like, look, we're bringing this guy in, this could really add a new depth to your game and to us as a team. I think him and Leao could really vibe off each other really, really well. I'd be excited to see how that works. I think that is an exciting little story for Milan that's worth keeping an eye on.
On the flip side, though, if they do manage to get 70 or 80 million for Leao, they'll reinvest that into the squad as well. Because I think if you think about the players that they could get from the rest of Serie A, if they got a Nicky Gonzalez, for example, to turn up as well as the replacement for Leao, or potentially, to dread I say this, Riccardo Orsolini from Bologna as well. I mean,
you took the words right out of my mouth, man. Honestly, you took the words out of my mouth. Someone needs to finally take a gamble on Orsolini, because I'm still repping that guy hard. It's insane. The finish, the goal he scored at the weekend. Oh my god!
And the crossfield ball from Calafiori as well. Wow.
Yeah. Incredible.
I mean, I think Uncle Sharma was purring about the prospects of him being in the inter-back line. Him, Bastoni, Bissek.
Yeah. Yeah, Calafiori looks incredible, doesn't he? He's 21 years old. It looks incredible. It looks incredible. Bologna, we're just selling your whole team here. I'm really, really sorry. I'm going to have to just get a picture of this Bologna squad photo, because it's the last time they're going to be together, I think. But yeah, Milan, that's exciting times for them. Big summer ahead. But guys, I think that's all of the Serie A stuff this week, or Italian football this week. So we're going to take a very quick break. We'll come back with our weekend previews and, of course, the Tic-a-Tac-a-Toe quiz. It's been so long, I can't wait.
Wow, let's do it.
Welcome back, and it is time to look forward to an incredible weekend in both England and Italy. Starting in the Premier League, it all kicks off on Saturday, 12:30 UK time, as I start praying for a miracle. Crystal Palace host Manchester City. We all know what's going to happen, but Crystal Palace beat them that one time, and it means it can definitely happen again. In the first of the 3:00 kickoffs on Saturday, we have Wolves taking on West Ham. Everton taking on Burnley in a massive, massive game down at the bottom. Burnley, as we said, with an uptick in form. Everton just cannot score for love nor money or Paul Dummett. But Burnley starting to look a little bit more sensible. Maybe they could get a big result there. How are you feeling about that game, Adam? Everton, Burnley?
It's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? I feel like Everton have the better of the attacking elements to their game, but defensively really shoddy. Burnley coming into form. It could be a really, I would say, scoring great game. I'd say overall, I'm going to go with 2-2. I think it's going to be one of those kind of games, very open, but it'll end up as a point apiece.
Yeah, I think a low score draw, 1-1 maybe. I don't know if I want to watch that game. Next up on Saturdays at 3:00, we have Aston Villa taking on Brentford. Fulham taking on Newcastle. Fulham at home, so they're probably going to win. We have Luton taking on Bournemouth in another massive game down at the bottom. As we said earlier in the show, a huge opportunity for Luton to try and get a result. They have to start picking up points at home. We have late kickoff on Saturday at 5:30. We have Brighton hosting Arsenal. Let's all pray together. Please pray for an Arsenal win. Don't be like that. Just pray for an Arsenal win, guys, please.
There's no Neil Maupay either. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no, that's a relief, right? That's a relief. And then on Sunday, we have the big games. We have Manchester United hosting Liverpool. Is that now? Obviously, we've just seen that Chelsea have won 4-3.
Yeah.
Right. So
we know Man United are going to win 1-0 now, don't we?
Any guess as to what's going to happen here? I kind of hope that maybe United, like in the FA Cup, would fluke something, but I can't see it.
I get the feeling that Liverpool will have that etched into their minds, what happened in the FA Cup match. I think that will be the prevailing kind of thought process for Jurgen Klopp, and he'll want to get one win, or the last win potentially, over Man United at Manchester. So I have little confidence in Man United, especially if we're thinking about the collapse tonight. So I haven't seen it, but we're assuming it's massive collapse tonight. So Liverpool win.
Yeah, I think so. God damn it, the bloody hell. Sheffield United take on Chelsea at 5:30 on Sunday. And then on Monday, Spurs host Forest, but you won't be watching that, guys. You'll be watching us live on Monday night, of course. Adam, what do we have in Serie A? Massive weekend,
and we'll start off, if you're listening to us on a Friday, listener, as we see Salernitana at home to Sassuolo in the massive 6-pointer. I would say, Rory, Salernitana, if they don't win this, they're pretty much guaranteed of relegation, but it's probably just there for another week anyway, for sure. But if we move into Saturday's fixtures, we have got at 2 p.m. UK time, AC Milan taking on Lecce at home. Big results needed for Lecce to make sure they're part of just establishing themselves away from the relegation zone. But we have got, Rory, on the Saturday evening at 5 p.m, Derby de Capitale, as the Roma take on Lazio. Now, interesting fortunes for both of these clubs because they go into it with kind of a clear mind. Two brand new managers for this as well, with Daniele De Rossi and Igor Tudor. How do you see this going?
I cannot tell you. I just know the tone is going to be so different as to if this was still Mourinho versus Sarri, right?
Exactly.
I'm just going to watch this game and then immediately watch the last Rome derby between Mourinho and Sarri to see how different, because I feel like we're coming into this with two managers that kind of, even though it's a derby, they've kind of got nothing to lose. They're just like, well, this is my first go. Let's just play this game how I want to play it, right? Let's play it how we want to play it and see what can happen. I think obviously there's a lot of pressure. It is a derby, but I feel like it's just going to be a really exciting game. We've seen that De Rossi isn't really a manager who likes to just sit back and see what happens. He likes his team to go for things. The fact that Lecce Roma finished 0-0 at the weekend was frankly a miracle. Like, Roma were far too open and definitely should have conceded. Lecce should have won that game, but there was no part of that performance where Roma were like, no, let's sit back, let's not bother. And I feel like with Tudor, as we talked about with his Hellas Verona side in the past, really attacking minded, really forward thinking, really quick attacks. And I think this is going to be it might be an open Rome derby. It feels like it's been a while since there's been one that's actually open, right?
It could be. I mean, I think there's probably more expectation on Daniele De Rossi given the time he's had at Roma to maybe get a result. But as we know, when it comes to derbies, it's all about pride. You can forget about that. And maybe, this could be the first time that actually Roma gets one up on Lazio because of the situation that Lazio find themselves. Igor Tudor will obviously go into this, making sure that, they have their kind of heads in for this game. They'll be focused for this, that's for sure. But yeah, I think there's a lot more expectation on Roma to deliver on this one, Rory. But we shall wait and find out. Elsewhere on Saturday, the 7:45 p.m. kickoff is Empoli at home to Torino. Empoli needing a massive result here because they find themselves in the relegation dogfight right now. We'll move into Sunday's game, should I say. So 11:30, we've got Frosinone at home to Bologna. Then at 2 p.m, Monza take on Napoli. At 5, we've got Cagliari at home to Atalanta. Hellas Verona taking on Genoa. And then at 7:45, Rory, Juventus at home to Fiorentina. How do we see this game going?
I can only see a Juve win. I know they've been in terrible form, but I just cannot see Fiorentina turning up in Turin and getting a result. I just can't see it. Not after they've just won their last game. I don't know the last time Fiorentina won 2 games in a row. It might have been recently. I can't remember it. So therefore it didn't happen. No, I feel like Juve probably get a win here, but I think it's probably a narrow one. I think it's probably a 2-1. 2-1.
Do you know what? Yeah. I'm going to give Viola a shot. I think they will do what they did earlier this season against Napoli and just play spellbinding football against this Juventus side. Maybe a 3-1 victory. Who knows? I'm going to give them some hope here. That. Just because Allegri, it'd just be typical Allegri, right? They'll take the lead, sit back, and then 3 quick goals or something like that.
I can see that.
And then, yeah, that could happen. That could be quite funny for a late night kickoff in Serie A. And then on Monday night, as we'll be talking on our live stream, we have Udinese at home to Inter. So Inter in great form. Udinese probably get another draw, Rory. So that is your Serie A fixtures.
Well, right? This is the interesting thing. Inter need to win, right? They need to win.
Sure.
Because if they win the next 3 games, then they can win the title against Milan in the derby. So they need, there is actually all of a sudden, there's a real impetus for Inter to go out and win games. Now, their strikers aren't scoring and they're not looking particularly impressive at the moment, but their centre-backs chip in, their wing-backs chip in. Somehow they get goals. So yeah, actually, I feel like Inter are really ramping up for this now. Right, we need to win in that game. Because then if they win their next 3 in the derby, if they draw or win, they get the Scudetto.
They want the second badge.
They want the second star, exactly. The second star against Milan. Massive. Absolutely massive. But yeah, that is the weekend preview, guys. I cannot wait for that Rome derby. I'm super excited. But we will see how it goes, guys. We are going to take a very quick break. And when we come back, we're going to come back with the Tiki Taka Toe quiz. We will see you there. And welcome to the Tiki Taka Toe quiz, this time Serie A edition, as I take on Adam. And for yous who are not watching, I will beautifully describe the graph. Along the top, we have Juventus, Lazio, and Brazil. And along the side, we have Parma, Atalanta, and Napoli. Now, Adam, I'm going to let you go first. Where would you like to start?
It's a really good and attractive board here, I have to say, Rory. I'm
it's looking good.
It's looking very good. Can I go for Lazio and Parma? Can I go for just double check this? It'll be Paolo Cannavaro.
Paolo Cannavaro. Oh.
We did.
You've misstepped in the first one. That's a difficult
Oh.
start. That's a difficult start. Okay, well, in that case, I'm going to go for... Now, I should start with Lazio and Atalanta, but no one's coming to mind, which is a bit mental. And I know I sound stupid when I say that now because there's going to be loads of players that have gone from Lazio to Atalanta. So, because it's not coming to mind, I'm going to go for Juve and Parma, and I'm going to say Kulusevski.
Yeah, good shout. Good stuff. Right. I'm going to go then, Rory, Juventus and Napoli. Gonzalo Higuain.
Higuain, nice. Okay. Lazio and Parma, I'm going to say... did he play for Parma? I think he was in the team. Nesta?
Yes. Yeah.
No!
But it wasn't for Parma. That's the only thing.
Parma.
So I'm going to go for Brazil and Parma just to block you off there and go with that magnificent striker, Adriano.
Adriano, that was the bloody one. February the 17th, 1982. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, nice. So I'm going to have to think of a Lazio and Atalanta player because it's the only way I can... We have to go through the middle at some point.
Yeah.
Unless I do Brazil and Napoli and go for Juan Jesus.
Yes. Which is the obvious answer there. Right.
It's a battle now. Lazio Atalanta player.
Because we all know those. Just trying to think who has played for both.
I think I might have one, maybe. I might have
on previous seasons who's played for them. Nothing's coming to mind, unfortunately. Ooh. Do you know what, Roy? Just to save time, I'm going to call your bluff. I'm going to go Atalanta, and Brazil, Edison.
Ederson. You know, this one also you're going to have to check the data, but okay, I think I could look really stupid here. Romagnoli? Oh, frick me.
Right,
it's your turn.
So just trying to think of someone that may have played for either Lazio and Atalanta. It's going to be someone really obscure, isn't it?
I think I might have just pulled one out of the bag, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
I've got a slight feeling, but it's a bit of a mad one.
Go with Juventus and Atalanta because I'm going to call you a bluff again, Rory. So Juventus and Atalanta, so on the far side.
Oh, wait. Yeah.
That go for Zappacosta.
Davide Zappacosta. Oh, no. God, we're having a stinker here. Now, I think there was a goalkeeper. It might have been an Albanian or something. I can't remember. I think Berisha? I'm frigged if I know his first name. I'm going to go for the top one and see what comes up. Oh,
well done. He pulls it out of the bag.
I'm not sure where that came from. Was he Albanian? I'm going to have to Google him.
It sounds Albanian, doesn't it?
Etrit. That is just from some Championship Manager, Football Manager vibe. I don't know how I've got that. He is Albanian. Oh, God love the Albanians. Well, guys, I don't know how that happened. We've kind of embarrassed ourselves a little bit there. But, don't tell anyone. It's fine. It'll be our little secret. But thank you for joining us, guys. As always, it's been a pleasure. Hope it's been a pleasure for you too. We will see you on Monday for the live stream, of course, 8:30 UK time, 9:30 Central European time on our YouTube live to discuss all of the weekend's action going through Serie A and Premier League. Adam, anything to say before I send these people off to enjoy their weekends?
enjoy your football of choice, as I'll be at Wembley on Sunday, taking in the famous Wycombe Wanderers at Wembley to lift up the potential Bristol Street Motors trophy. So fingers crossed, Rory, fingers crossed, we'll be here glorious with a trophy to the name of Wycombe Wanderers again.
Well, as the Italians would say, in bocca lupo, good luck. We are all behind you. So, as always, guys, you can follow us on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, on Instagram at Anglo-Italian Pod, and on TikTok at Anglo-Italian Pod. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button down here. Tell a friend and leave a rating on your podcast chat app. Oh my God, of choice. It's been a very long day. Podcast chat. That's what I call myself when I introduce myself to people at parties. And we are going to leave you with this quote from the week, and it's come from the Norwegian League in Rosenborg, as striker Ole Saito scored in the first round of fixtures of the season. And in his post-match interview, after reflecting on his goal, they asked him, what are you going to do after the game to celebrate? He said, I'm going home, phone in one hand, cock in the other. I'm going to have fun. The night will be long. Have a great weekend, guys. We hope you have fun, long weekends too. Ciao.
Ciao,
Alla
ciao.
prossima.